Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 334. And we've got a guest that we haven't had on before, although you may know some of his work because I did a video. I kind of spotlighted him on a video if you do watch my videos. But we'll do what we always do before we get to our guest. And we are going to just talk about anything we got going on, anything we want to promote. I did mention my channel. You're on my channel, so there are tons of videos on here, tons of just art advice, all that kind of stuff. So if you're not familiar, if you just happen to stumble upon this, that's what you can find there. Also on my website, it's circworks.com. Well, I guess I should pull up these little things here. There we go, circworks.com. I've got tons of digital and things like that that will help you create comics, and I've got merch and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Also, I've got a newsletter. If you aren't already on my newsletter, if you join it, you will get something called this Comic Maker Starter Kit. And it's just a bunch of free tools for making digital comics. And if you get on my newsletter, you will be notified when I launch my Kickstarter, which is going to be in a couple of weeks. So things are ramping up for my comic book, Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. Got the 5th issue coming out, but if you don't have any of the issues, they'll all be available, plus cool variant covers and a bunch of cool stuff. So just join us. If you're not already on it, you will be notified when I launch that thing in advance. So there's a couple of tiers there that are limited that have some original sketches and things like that. So anyway, that's what's coming up for me. And what about you, Josh?
Nice. Anytime you say tears, I think prison tears, because I think we had a joke last time. I think this might go back to our last. Scott, am I crazy? Didn't we actually make that a goal? When you funded a specific app, you had to like draw prison tears on your. Anyhow, so you guys keep that in mind. Like, you know, as this Kickstarter ramps up, we might be able to bring back the prison tears. Who knows? Okay, so I'm Joshua Kemble. You can find my stuff at this website. And then I have 2 graphic novels out. The one that's most important that you guys should pay attention to right now, because it came out last month, is Jacob's Apartment. This is a comic that is kind of done about the kinds of questions that can shake even the strongest of faith. And it has the feeling of like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind and Ghost World and you put them in a blender and you kind of had that flavor and you enjoyed it. That's kind of the vibe of this book. But it basically talks about 2 young adults finding identity, questioning faith, and ultimately the question of, is life worth anything without love? So this is available at bookstores everywhere. The best way you can get a hold of it is to go to your local comic book shop or bookstore and ask that they carry this book. And I will also say that the people out there, especially in the Artcasters community, have been doing your due diligence in picking up this book. My publisher has been really happy with the numbers for the first month. They're really good numbers for an indie book, and I want to keep that going so that I can keep publishing books. So, please get out there and if you haven't yet, if you've been like sitting on the fence about it, like pick up a copy. I'm pretty darn sure you'll enjoy it. I spent 5 years on it. Really proud of it. So so there's that, and then 2 stories which you can get. That's my autobiographical comic that you guys are very used to me pitching. So I won't say much about it other than it's just an autobiographical comic done kind of like Zap or Raw, like the classic traditional indie comic confessional autobio, and that's available on Amazon. So for like a really reduced rate quite often. So that's my wares. And that'll do it. And I kept it under like 5 minutes, which for me is pretty good.
You were shorter. I think you were shorter than me. Good job.
Yes. All right. I'm trying.
And then Corey isn't with us, but we'll pitch his stuff anyway. He'll be back hopefully next week. I think he told us he wasn't going to be here this week, and we totally forgot. So, but anyway, so Corey's got a new comic strip that he's working on. Ye Old Modernity. Modernity, yes. Yeah.
Christopher got it.
Yeah.
Great. I really
You're a better friend than we are, Christopher. But it's a good comic. It's a good comic strip, and you guys should check it out. It takes really complicated ideas that can be like hard political conversations or philosophical conversations and boils them down into like 4-panel, enjoyable, digestible comic strips. And the style of it, I don't know, Scott, if you have anything like, I don't know. It's blowing me away.
It's almost like Weeble Wobbles meets, I don't know what.
Yeah. Like if you took, Weeble Wobbles, Fisher Price people, and then mixed them with like a vintage, like Renaissance style illustration, like woodcut kind of thing. It's worth checking out, is all we're saying. It's very good.
Christopher was talking about dating himself, and here I go back to Weeble Wobbles. All right. So just and follow Corey on his YouTube channel, because he's posting some new stuff, and he's got this cool video of his camera basically taking a tumble and flying down the street and over, I don't know how far it traveled, but and you can see the fate of that camera, which actually fared pretty well, but I don't want to spoil it too much. So definitely check out his YouTube channel for that. And now, finally, on to our guest, Christopher Runciman. Am I okay. Close enough. All right. So Christopher got on my radar. He sent me a comic, and I get sent comics all the time, and I don't always get a chance to feature them on my YouTube channel, but this one I definitely made a point to, because and we're going to talk about it today, because I'll let Christopher. I'm just going to hold it up and let Christopher talk a little bit about it. But just it really impressed me when I got this in the mail, so I had to do a video on it and everything. We're going to dive into what that's all about. But I don't know. You want to introduce yourself, Christopher?
My name's Christopher Runciman. I'm Canadian, I've been drawing comics my whole life, but in 2015, my wife and I decided to start a comic company based on a bunch of finished projects that she found in a drawer in my studio. We were amalgamating my away studio and into our household, and there were all these books that while I'm doing portrait work and paintings for galleries, I do comics on the side, and so she found finished projects in a drawer and said, you got to do something with these. Come on. So that started us, and we've published 68 books since 2015. I've done the one-page comic extravaganza that I sent to these guys is my 30th, and I don't sleep much.
I guess not. You and Josh both. Wow. That's almost, maybe we should have. I got kind of buried the lead that I didn't even know I had, but because
I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome.
It sounds a lot more grandiose than maybe about me than it is. One of the things that we've approached here in London, myself and some friends at a local gallery called the Arts Project Center for Creativity. It's myself and Doug Rogers and fellows like Derek Latimer, Nigel Garnett. It's just a bunch of us get together, and every month, second Monday, and anyone who comes and joins us. And we've had, 6 people around the table. We've had 30 people around the table. And what we started doing is I draw the first panel and I slide the page into the middle, or Doug draws the first panel on his page and he slides it into the middle, and everybody around the table does that. And then everybody around the table grabs somebody else's page and does the next panel.
I actually did that. We started to do that with some friends of mine, and we met like maybe twice, and we just didn't keep it up. But
we've been doing it since 2015.
That's
awesome. We stopped for 2 years during the lockdowns because, unfortunately, in Canada, the galleries weren't allowed to be open. And so now that tap is open again. Here we go. And the first few, sessions, we're all wearing masks. But here, we're all back again. And it's fun, and it's growing again. It's like it's starting over from scratch with the numbers. But so one of the things that came out of that is that I would collect those, because at that point, all Runciman Press, it's on my shirt. Can you see it? Oh, fancy.
Nice.
Yeah, company shirts. So what it really was just the books that I'm doing. And I started putting it out there. Anybody that wants to be in an anthology, just let me know, and I'll put you in print if you've ever wanted that. Come on to the jams, And so people would come out to the jams. They'd break the ice for themselves by getting involved in that level of doing engagement on a comic page. And then I would suggest to people, well, if you've drawn on a comic page, just draw your own. And, that's a great way to put your foot in the water. Just try to tell one point of story on one comic page, and there you go. People would do that. Great. Now you can expand that a little bit and do it as 4 pages. And people would do that. And so our apartment anthology, and we've done 15 of those now, are 4-page shorts collected together. And then from there we went on and did, just before COVID, we got our 3rd issue out of RP Comics Monthly, and those were 8-page ongoing stories. So 3 stories, 8 pages each month. 3 months in, lockdown, we're done. So, because unfortunately, we've done things very parallel, very small press, very local comic store. I've been working on managing a comic store in London here for 21 years. And I just retired from that in September. And
wow.
Well, it was a health reason that made me retire from that, but I'm working in the studio full time now and working on my own stuff full time. But we couldn't do local comics on the shelf for impulse purchasing or for regular people to come in and pick them up, because there was no on the shelf for people to come in and peruse through. And so we took a hiatus. When I say we, I mean my wife and I. She's my business partner in all of this and helps keep me my creative insanity organized. And because I'm an engine, I just keep driving on tracks and creating and drawing and painting and digitally doing things as well and mixing the two now. And so that's where we started going, and that's what we started doing. And one of the things, because everything shut down for COVID, I put it out there to a lot of our customers that, they're single guys, they're whatever age and whatever, they're single gals, and they might not have an awful lot of outlets for interaction. I said, well, hook up on Instagram or through my email or whatever. If you've got a comic idea, I'll do it. And let's explore those avenues. And that's what started the day that the Canadian, was it May 15th, 2020? 2020? Yeah, that'll work. And so that day I started doing that, and I've done 97 now. So
wow.
The 1-page comic extravaganza collects the first chunk. And there's 2 in there that are 2 pages. There's one that's 4 pages. A 4-year-old little girl said, "Can you do a nice zombie story where the zombies are nice?" So I did a 4-page bit based on Father Knows Best from the 1950s, where the family gathers, all the stereotypical cliches of 1950s American sitcoms are in it. Father reading the paper. Mother comes out of the kitchen, calls the children, all gather on the staircase. The only problem is that the pizza guy who's outside the door is delivering a vegan pizza. And so it just repeats itself over and over and over. And
I love it.
That's it, But when a 4-year-old little girl says, Do a nice one. You invest a little more.
So I just like the idea of that as like, I mean, as a short, that's great, but it's like I almost want to see that as a series just called Nice Zombies.
Nice Zombies.
To me, that sounds great. Yeah.
You know, and base it on nothing but sitcoms.
So good.
I mean, you could do some Dick Van Dyke in there, like just take it through time, but not like the WandaVision show. That was too expedited. You really gotta luxuriate in those old-fashioned Leave It to Beaver type things where what seems to be the problem, Beav?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Ollie lied, you know.
You could have like a zombie episode of Flipper. I mean, it could just go all over the place.
That's almost wrong on levels. I love it. What's the matter, Flipper? But there can be no zombie cliche. Like there could be no blood or gore or whatever. That's the idea of the whole dialogue of this one-page notion. Yeah. That's the whole idea, is that what's your zany idea? And let's go. And it challenges me creatively because I got to figure out how to do a one-page story based on.
Yeah, and with all these one-page stories and everything you have, I mean, you have just like a list going on of ideas, or how do you generate? Because I mean that's a lot of. I mean, obviously you're super prolific. I mean, that's a lot of different ideas. I mean, a lot of people when they draw a comic, they've got one idea and then they just continue that on. But you've got, just in this one book alone, I don't know how many comics are in this one, but then you've got all these other comics. Where do you kind of, how do you generate these ideas? So they just kind of pop in your head, or you?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, there's so many ideas out there, and there's so many notions out there, and I think a big thing that might hold back a lot of creative people has got to be the fact that, well, I'm too hesitant to motion myself in this direction. I'm too hesitant to pursue this idea. I want this to be perfect, and I want this to be fully realized and rounded. And we spend so much time, a lot of creatives, worrying about what the water in the pool is like, that sometimes we forget to just get in the water. And so we don't create. So we can get hung up on the notion or the idea that's crossed your path, or we can just go for it. Just one idea was, a person said that it's interesting that if a vulture betrays its mate, it will be shunned by the flock. Right? Yeah. Cool. I get to draw vultures.
Well, again, I think it's kind of akin to like single panel comics, or if you're like a New Yorker comic artist or whatever, you've got to get all these different ideas, and it's just like just whatever pops into your head. But what I really like about this idea is that, and like you were saying, you don't want to be too precious with it, but it almost lends itself to that because it's a one-page comic. So what if it sucks? You do another one, and then another one, and then and it's just like, and it doesn't, because the bigger the project is, and that's, you said, there's so many people that just don't. I love that analogy of the jumping into the pool, because there's so many people that are just afraid to do that because they're thinking of, I've got to write and draw Lord of the Rings. No, you don't. I mean, somewhere down the line, maybe that's what you can do if you want, but don't start off with that. And Josh may argue with me a little bit on this, I think, but I'm just a huge proponent. Or proponent rather, of just starting small. And and I've always said, start with a mini comic, but I really love this idea of just starting with a one-page or a comic strip or
but this is ostensibly a mini comic. It's the same notion, different format.
And the ability to collect all those into a collection, and you've got like you said, which I thought was amazing, that you got one book here and then you've got all these other. So previous to the pandemic, did you just not publish anything? Did you hold on to everything, or were you publishing stuff? Or maybe
No. I started that at the start of the pandemic.
You started this.
I've done 97 since the start of the pandemic.
It's awesome.
How do you? So how much of that artwork's already done? You said you found a lot. You had a lot of artwork.
No. So here, how do I show this?
And when you say 90 comics, you're not talking about. Are you talking about 90 single page comics or 90 collections?
97 single page comics.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That makes a lot. Okay, that's
you almost made Scott and I just quit in fury. We're done. I'm done with comics.
97 books.
I'm picturing you had all this stuff just in drawers and okay, I'm just drawing all these. I'm going to publish them all.
I think Scott thought you were literally sitting on a tower of 100 comics that
the person that would walk into the room and say, "I've finished 97 books since the start of COVID."
Yeah.
Throw the mic down. just wreck it on the stage. Hit it on the stage a few times. You've dropped the mic.
But that's still amazing. I mean, 97. That's equivalent to that's like a little graphic novel you've made just since the pandemic. That's pretty amazing. That's a lot of pages.
Well, thanks. The thing that I approach it from, and I would
just a little late. I saw it a little late, but that's pretty funny, Galen.
Yeah, that would be good.
Actually, real quick, Galen, I do want to reach out to you to have you on the show too. I've been meaning to do that. We've just been kind of booked up, but yeah, we are interested in having you on the show. So, but anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Christopher.
You guys have got Lassie here. Where I am, we had a show called The Littlest Hobo. And it was about this dog that would travel the rail yards from town to town, helping somebody out of their problem, and then on to the next town.
That's awesome. What kind of dog?
German Shepherd.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to get the dog wrong. I'm a cat guy.
We had Benji in the 80s. So.
Oh yeah, Benji too. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's so many different TV dogs. Sorry.
So with the single page comics, because there's a mindset to illustration and kind of t-shirt design that I instantly think of because I spent so much time doing that. Where it would be really hard to conceptualize what you're gonna do for the first t-shirt design. But then what would happen is as you started just kind of piling them, if you got in a process where you were doing something like a t-shirt design every day, then suddenly the ideas just start very much like Scott was talking about. The ideas you become less precious about because it's not this is the only design you're ever going to make. It's you're making one a day, so you just got to get that one done. And what happens is this kind of cool thing where you can build momentum. And then out of nowhere, you'll have too many ideas of what you want to do. And you'll have a list of things, or funny things will come up when you're working on one thing that kind of inspire the other. And so I totally agree with you on the idea that, people get stuck in that first beginning stage with the blank page and can get very intimidated. And I agree with Scott on this, where it's if you are having especially as a creative, having that problem with the blank page kind of dooming you because it's if you're making your first painting and you haven't painted yet, it can be a dangerous situation because, until you jump in, there's all the potential of what could be, which is a fun state that a lot of people like to stay in. But the second you make the thing, you have to live with some realities of your own capacity as an artist. Because you're going to realize oh, wow, I need to work on my paneling. I need to work on my, whatever it is you need to work on is going to become really obvious, especially in comics. And it's not necessarily always going to come out exactly as you intended. And so it's I think some people like to float in that area of not doing, where it's you can have the fantasy, but not the reality of it. But I agree. I also think it can be intimidating because people want to make like Scott was saying, Lord of the Rings. And I think that one panel or one page Like a simple thing is not a bad way to start. The only thing I always advocate too is like very similarly, like there's a lot of people who want to make their Lord of the Rings, and they just keep kicking that can down the road. And, you know, as we all know, like time does not increase as you get older. And so it's like one of those things of like, if you want to do like graphic novels, at some point, you know, you're going to have to like jump in and just do it, because there is no like perfect period of time where everything's prepared. Anyhow, sorry. But I do think that I did notice that when I was generating ideas, where like once you're in the flow of it and you're making stuff, it kind of creates new ideas kind of come. Has that been the case for you, or did you already have like a massive list of a bunch of stuff you wanted to do, or has it been like that, like number 97 is a little easier than number 3, you know, of it? I'm curious.
I completely concur with the idea that the routine of creativity allows you to more readily engage in your creative output. Absolutely. I think that any time that you get yourself into a pattern and a method of sitting down, I got my stuff, I got my tiny little cup of tea. It's this is, my kids found me this. I'm 6'6". This is the only cup they think is warranty. So as soon as you sit down in that routine, as soon as you sit down in that facility for yourself of saying, I'm identifiably here for purpose. Yeah. This is my moment. This is my job in the moment. And my job is to get in tune with myself and get it out, get creative. And as soon as you're able to do that, then you're going to be able to actualize, and you're going to be able to do all kinds of things and explore all kinds of avenues that you wouldn't have considered before. For me, I came to doing one pages. I went backwards, right? I didn't try Lord of the Rings, but the first book that we put out, or that RP did, that I don't have a copy beside me of, is a book called Trials of Apex, and it was 48 pages. That was my first book out. And that's
ambitious for a first book.
Sure. And I drew it in ballpoint. I drew it in ballpoint pen. And because I'm ridiculous. And
that's awesome.
It worked out pretty well. A lot of response to that. That book went back for a second print, sold that out as well. It's kind of nice. Did it in two issues, one after the other, and then collected it into one volume. And then I did, so I've been doing multiple tracks at once because I'm just too varied at any given moment. And so because I came to creating comics from that perspective, I've got a series that I've done called Elmwood that's on issue 11. And then 12 is just going to be a small graphic novel that, collapses what happened in the first 11 books into the beginning part of the graphic novel, and just goes and finishes the thing because
awesome.
It's been too long undone. And then I did a thing called Short Story Release, where I'm doing 1 page, 4 page, 6 page, whatever I want to create. I did another book at the same time called Alphabet Book, and it's an alphabetary. So every page is just a different story or picture or whatever based on the letter of the alphabet.
I love it.
And so I did 3 of those.
And that's just interrupt real quick, Christopher, because I mean, just something like that is like a brilliant prompt. If you're having trouble coming up with an idea, do a story for it's so. I mean, I hate. I don't want to be the guy but at some point these are just excuses. I mean, you just got to sit down and do it, and not be so precious about it. But sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. It's a real problem for me when somebody comes up to me and goes, "I got a book. It's 6. It's gonna be like 6 issues."
Yeah.
Right. And it's about a surfboarder. But he can control the water with his mind. Okay. Have you got it written? No. Let me know when you get it written.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, man, I got this idea, and I'm like, dude, you told me this. It's still, fire guy with fire powers. I get it. You've got the idea. Do it. Do the thing.
Yeah.
But maybe that's a great challenge that we all, we need to be more appreciative of. Maybe sometimes I think that's something I have to be more aware of, is that I might be crazy in the sense that, and people, mental health issues and all that people have, but I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the idea of the ability to dissociate into an idea and pursue that creatively as an outlet, and so that enables you to take a piece of fiction that could you imagine if this, just do it.
Yeah.
Do it. And the challenge becomes structure over time. And I think that's where you have to take account for in your creative process. Okay, so here, I'll show you something here. One of the things that I tried to do for myself in one page, and this is something that there's 2 things that I think help me. One, beside me in my studio, I have watercolor. I've got a number of bricks like this of watercolors that are set out together. And if you haven't picked up these, it's a brush, but it's a pen. The water.
Oh, those things are awesome. Yeah.
Beautiful, right? There's your watercolor.
Ink in them too. You can put ink in them too.
Oh, you can. But there's your watercolor set on the go, right? You don't even have to worry about a water reservoir nearby. Oh, I got to go get that to get started. No, it's in the pen. You're good to go, right? I got this is acrylic brushes in a pen form, right? I've got those. I've got markers. I've got these are other kinds of markers that are actually paintbrushes. Everything. I keep it all set up beside me in my studio. It's very compartmentalized. And the reason that I do that is that what do I feel like working in right now? And so because I've given myself that liberty of exploring and not being precious about what the output is it going to be right? Is it going to be wrong? It doesn't matter. Just put it down. Because the second facility that I found, which is immeasurable, and if I was really reticent to invest in the whole computer setup, and for a long time, because I was a dad, kids, and that was always my first priority was family. Yeah. And so I've had a real problem with growing up in poverty myself, Western rural poverty. I've always been reticent about money on myself.
Yeah.
And so I took forever to get into that, right? My kids are all adults now. So, and now, with my wife's encouragement is, go get whatever you need. These are your tools. It's the same as you're working in lumber, you buy a saw, And so the liberty of Photoshop, is that you can take this hodgepodge amount of creativity that you've got and you can format it together. And then as you're learning those foundational rules about storytelling and sequential storytelling and about, the Z shape on a page and how do we follow the dialogue and how do we follow the format of the images and what are the points of a story. And as you start finding this underlying piece of formalism and you sort of put that into your head as rote, so now when you're doing your creativity and you're doing that formatting together, now you're boundless.
Yep.
Because the preciousness is gone. You've got whatever you want to draw in and whatever you want to do in whatever style, in whatever approach, you're going to explore this avenue. And then you've got this magical computer that lets you clean it all up.
Yep. I love
it pretty.
I absolutely love that you're mentioning all this multimedia too, because I have found in comics that quite often people feel very restricted. And don't get me wrong, we're a channel that's full of inking nerds. Like Scott and I and Corey have gone on at length about the kind of ink that's best and the kind of brushes that are great, and we're real nerds for that stuff. But to limit yourself and your creativity based on that, when those tools, like those traditional cartooning tools, were initially invented for the limited printing capacity at the time. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned your first book being like done in ballpoint pen. I think I can think of like Emil Ferris or whatever who did My Favorite Thing Is Monsters. And I mean, you know, and that entire book is like rendered in ballpoint pen. You know, it's like there's not another good example of just like multimedia in comics is like The Eternal Smile, written by Gene Yang and illustrated by Derek Kirk Kim, where Kim does traditional cartooning, and then the next thing you know, he's doing these beautiful watercolors, and it's like it's all in the same book, because why not? Like, and I do encourage people like out there, like, I mean, yeah, be traditional if you want, but at the same time, like, I love the idea, Christopher, of like having a variety of tools around you so that you can allow for that inspiration, especially if you're doing one-page comics, because why not change up the style and variety? I think that's really exciting. And I mean, I advocate for this all the time on the show. Like, you know, you should change up your styles if you can to suit your story.
Yeah. I just want to.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to point out while we're on that subject. I mean, definitely, and there is a link in the description of the video to click on and check out Christopher's book. I mean, I can just flip through it a little bit, but literally, I mean, this book looks like it is an anthology, but it's a one-person anthology, but it doesn't look like a one-person anthology, because there's tons of different styles, and every once in a while, like the detective one, there might be one that kind of repeats, but there's so many, I mean, different, you know, color schemes and media and all this stuff. So my question is, you've got your idea. How do you decide kind of what medium you want to use for a particular idea? Is it just whatever I feel like doing, or is there something in the idea that sparks what media you're going to use? Or
well, that's the flow. I mean, that's the super flow of how you approach it. Is that if you ever want a tutorial on just kitchen sink creativity, this is the way I look at it as, right? Take a look at guys like Bill Sienkiewicz, or Dave McKeon.
Yep.
Right. Any of the.
By the way, Cage's easily one of the best graphic novels ever made.
Transcendent. Right. My favorite. One of my favorite books of all time is Violent Cases.
Oh yeah.
By Neil Gaiman and Dave McKeon, and pencil, paint, photograph, you know, ink, just everything. Kitchen sink, right? So and what does it take for this page? What do you feel like drawing in? And what have you got at hand? What have you got? Get a good, strong, go to a place like, I don't know what you have in the States, like Staples or like
Staples.
Okay, so go there and get a cardstock, 8.5 by 11 cardstock. Nice thick stuff, right? Thin stuff if you want to trace over pre-penciled things because you really want to utilize those, and you know, and I don't want to have to redraw it all. That's fine. But if you get a good thick cardstock, you can abuse that paper so much, and you can draw it all over in ink and then wash that out with bleach from your kitchen, from underneath the sink, right? Which people would think to work with. But if you draw something in ink and then go over it with bleach, watch what happens. Yep. Don't be precious about it. It's just a drawing. Jackson Pollock's deny the mistake, embrace the opportunity. Right.
I love that. I remember in art school, and at some point, I really do want to kind of play with some. You know what? Maybe that's what I'll have to do when I'm done with these books, is like some one-pagers, so I can experiment more with different techniques. But like one of my favorites from art school that I used to use on illustrations all the time is like if you mask off an area and you spray it with water, and then you use oil-based spray paint. On the unmasked area, it creates this bubbling and just insanity. And then if you hit that with a water-based spray paint afterwards, it creates chaos because the water and oil are just like, no.
It's the same as marbling. It's a marbling technique.
Yeah, and I mean, why not? Like, and when you rework it, it gets tough because suddenly then you're reworking over oil a little bit, but that can be fun. You can find different things that kind of work over that. it's playing, the importance of play with your medium is
it's
so
great. There was a Vanguard Publishing put out a book called the 1995-96 Watch Annual, and it features Bill Kolb and McKeon, Sienkiewicz, a whole number of wonderful artists that that I can't. His name escapes me. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names. But all the people that he'd had the opportunity to work with and publish some material up before. And when you've got guys out there in the world like George Pratt and Ken Williams and all these other people that are just going for it with gusto, painters that are approaching ink. Look at John J. Muth. He adapted M, the Fritz Lang film.
Yeah.
And he did it in charcoal.
Yep.
And then he goes and paints a Sandman book to look like ancient traditional Japanese ink drawings. Like this, you just go for it. Just do whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a wealth of creators out there that I highly recommend. People just stop looking at Todd McFarlane and those guys. Enough. Okay. The 90s were great. I remember them too. But there's so much out there, and there's such a wealth of things. Look what Bill Watterson does with Simple Marks and Calvin and Hobbes.
Yep.
You can't express that unless you try it.
Yeah.
Right. So my approach is to just have everything available. And because I've packaged my studio in such a way, I've got everything compartmentalized. So without any effort, I put it in a bag and take it with me. And so that's what I'll be doing this weekend. I'm doing a signing at a mall here in London and selling some comic books. And I'll be working in the space while I do it, because I can pack my studio up and take it with me and all this mixed media stuff. And then I'll scan it, I'll put it in the computer, and I'll make pages of it. Like many of it, I'll draw straightforward in a page. Like this is, I'll show you some examples of the new one page. So this is Hop Like a Bunny. And this is a little stress anxiety piece. Life can get you down, like life can push you to the floor. Sometimes you got to get back up. And then bunnies seem to have it easy. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'll dress like a bunny. Maybe not. And the last one, this is me in a bunny costume. But this is heavy red cardstock that I'm drawing white ink on.
I love it.
And then coming in with blue ballpoint, this is white cardstock that I've done ink washes on and drawn in red pen. This down here is a red pen drawing of a rabbit that I overlaid onto the image.
So not only each comic book is different media, but in some cases,
some of the panels.
Each. Okay, wow. Okay.
This is a straight-on page of Antonio Banderas is Too Sexy. I'm sorry, it's a little washed out. But this is a straight-on 11 by 17 page drawn in red ballpoint pen.
Wow. I love it.
And then I added in the text with Photoshop. This is a straightforward drawing.
So Christopher, I'm curious about this too, because I found this, especially if I'm sketching or like I feel creatively blocked or whatever. It's like, and I've said this to people before, where like if they're like, because you're probably familiar with people like online, always talking about tools and supplies and like finding the perfect brush or whatever. But like some of the most creatively free moments I've had are when my 8-year-old kid has his crayons out and he asks me to draw with him. And I'm just grabbing whatever's like there in his little toolkit. So I'm grabbing like crayons, like crappy Crayola markers. I'm just drawing on like whatever paper's there. I'm using whiteout if it's in the room, whatever. And it kind of actually having the limitations of a variety of medium, but also not being too, like you were saying, not being too precious about it. Like, why not use a ballpoint pen? Why not use cardstock from like, like these things we don't need like, well, anyhow, I'm curious, like, are you intentional about that too? Like because it sounds like you're intentionally kind of exploring outside of just like a kind of traditional art tool and kind of going to more basic kind of like supplies that you could get at like a Staples or something like that, but like making great work out of it. Is that an intentional like choice to kind of do that?
It is and it isn't. I grew up poor.
Yeah, same here.
Now, in other parts of the world, poor is relative.
Yeah.
And totally respectful of that. But for here, and London is a very rich city, and to be poor here was very limited. And so the facility of being raised by a single mom we had nothing. We had no income. David Mack speaks to this. His mother would go to the newspaper in their city. His mother or father would, and they get a roll of what's called end-roll stock. When they run the newspaper, there's a little bit left, and when I say a little bit, it's usually a drum like this big of sheets and sheets of paper.
Yeah,
it's too short to run an edition of the paper on. So what do? They either send that off to the recycling, which costs them money.
Yeah.
To get larger, gigantic spools, 6 foot across spools again, or they give them away. And so they would get those as a kid, and they would roll it out. One of the kids would lie on it. The parent would serrate it at the end of their height, and then they would trace themselves and draw their imagination inside. What a gift that is.
That really is, actually.
That's making the greatest accommodation with the least.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. It's funny. Did you have a similar typewriter paper? Yeah.
That's all we could afford was typewriter paper. And so the versatility of finding, because I have to draw.
Yeah.
I can't, I don't know how many times I've done this during the talk, and if I have, I've apologized. I have to draw. I have to hold a pen. I have to, when I get up in the morning, when I would go, because I work from home now, my walk is 20 feet long to the office. And,
I love it.
And because our kids are adults and have all moved out, I am very fortunate and very spoiled in my studio, in that I have the studio I always wanted now. Now, awesome. Mind you, it took 50 years to get there, but here we are. And so whatever I find, wherever we're going to the dollar store for something. Oh, these are neat. What is this?
Yeah.
Could it be so lucky as that the color inside is the same as the color on the outside? Or maybe I'll just get more of these, but that's cool too. So I bought the 3 packs that had little different colors, and I think it cost me a total amount of $8.
Yeah.
And they're all independent markers with brush tips.
I absolutely love that.
Cool. So now I come from a fine art background where the talk was always about got to use good materials so that they have longevity. No, they don't. Not in today's age, where there's so many finishes and so many sprays and things that you can put on stuff and varnishes that it's done. It's finished. It'll stay. So whatever you're using in the medium, in the meantime, to make these things, use whatever you find. Use dollar store brushes. Don't spend $1,000 on a brush if this thing is just going to get scrumbled all over the place. Get it at a dollar store, or we have things like the Giant Tiger here. I don't know if you have them there, but it's sort of like an intermediate between like a dollar store and a Walmart or a department store. You can find, these aren't Copics. This is some Crafto.
Ha! I love that name.
Whatever. These are acrylic paint markers from Shake. Never heard of it. But I got them at our department store, Walmart. I got a dozen for $20. And it's a range of colors. We were in Sarnia, which is close to Port Huron in the States.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the bridge, on the other side of the St. Clair River. And I found at a bookstore, a set of these paint brushes for acrylic paint marker. That's all it says on them. Not even a brand.
Yeah.
Acrylic paint marker, but look at them. That's just blue paint.
Yep.
and you've got a marker tip. So draw. There's no necessity for having to find the most expensive material. If you're just swinging, if you're just playing baseball, get a stick.
Yep. I instantly am reminded of this thing that I'm an okay guitarist, right? So and similarly, like and by okay I mean like I can play passably. I'm not great, but I too like also grew up poor and drawing on like my dad worked somewhere. I talk about it in 2 stories, but it's like he used to bring home dot matrix printer paper from the dot matrix printer that literally just had like sales numbers from his workplace. But what was cool was they print on the banded side. So if you flipped it, you had this infinite canvas of like white paper that like was all like, all you had to do was like peel off the little dot things at the side that the track pulled to like print the thing. Anyhow, but because of that, like I learned guitar on a terrible guitar. I played terrible guitars. For me, like even when I got into like my 30s, I'd feel guilt buying like a Squier. That's how cheap of guitars I was buying. So about a year or 2 ago, I bought my first like real guitar, like a real Fender, and then from there went and got like a real real Gibson, like real actual guitars. The thing is, I probably play those guitars better than if I had started on them.
Oh yeah.
And when you do go to buy a nice guitar or a cheap guitar, what you'll notice is the guys who can play guitar really well could take like a $10 kid's guitar that doesn't even stay in tune and make it sound good. Like the instrument is a tool. It's I just am reiterating what you're saying, Chris, because I feel like there are a lot of people online who are always looking for, it's kind of like we were talking about with the blank page being used as an excuse to like delay, where it's like, well, I don't know, no, just make a page. Similarly, don't use tools as like your excuse for like delaying. Just pick a tool and start with that. Like you can do a comic book with a burnt stick. I mean, like you literally could. Like I remember an article.
On paper.
Yeah, you can take a feather. You can take an X-Acto knife, just cut cut the feather where it arcs like that on the end, and then you just split the tine, and you have yourself like a dip pen. These things don't have to be these crazy tools, and then get the nice tools as you go if you need them. But it's like, I love that approach, Chris, and that sounds really inspiring. And now I feel very limited dealing with my Photoshop stuff. Makes me want to go back and play.
But I've watched you do your Photoshop, and you're very experimental. It's not the tools.
Yeah.
It's how to approach exploring our own creativity, and there shouldn't be limitations.
Yes.
For ourselves to connect with that internalized self, and to connect with, because as human beings, we have an integral need to self-express.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we're a communal creature. There's a reason that we interact with each other, and we all don't run off to our platonic or Plato cave and just look at the fire, the shadows from the fire. There's definitely something to be said for, I have a need for exposition, and having my exposition come across to you in whatever way, shape, or form. And having kids gives you an insight. When you're raising your kids, and especially if any of your kids might have a challenge in expressing themselves, and expressing themselves to a norm. Let's call it a norm, a societal expectation of this is how everybody does everything. If you ever have anybody around you in your life, and most specifically, I think a child, that you need to think about that. And you need to think about, well, how do we communicate, or how do we find your voice, or how do we find your facility for communication that is clearly going to be in its own way, and how do we pursue whatever different avenues in order for everybody to be able to to sing in the choir, for everybody to get out there and have their voices heard and have us all engaged together. And so I think that any blocks that we put on our creative self-expression, whatever that might be, is not doing anything but self-harm, in the sense that maybe I'm a little metaphysical at this point, but it's just
get metaphysical.
What did that last quote said? You can't be afraid to suck. Is that what that said?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got to not be afraid to suck. That's exactly it. That's fantastically succinct compared to my rant. It's amazing how you'll find yourself cluttering up your space and driving everyone around you crazy because you see potential in things that other people look at and go, yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's a good
one of the best, I was going to say real quick, one of the best gifts I ever got, my aunt made this. It was just a shoebox, or a little bigger than a shoebox. And she put like a ream of, I think, 11 by 17 paper in it, some pencils, a ruler, and just drew a little, what do you call it? Light bulb. And it said Scott's Idea Box on it. And it was great. I loved it. And it took me a while, but I went through that whole sheet of paper just drawing. A whole big thing of, copy paper. And it was great.
Yeah, and Scott is like a good example of this too, like the kind of creatively like using whatever tool, because like more so than me, I would say, like I with Scott, like he'll even fabricate things like full 3-dimensional things. It's like, I think Scott just can't help but do and apply creativity to whatever tools he's got around him. And it's like, anyhow, sorry, Scott. So when you were saying that, I'm like, I bet that connects to that idea box. And also, I think that maybe this is a common thread, but it sounds like we all had parents that, like, as we were growing up, weren't like telling us we couldn't draw, which is kind of a nice thing. At least it sounds like.
I was told not to draw.
Oh, well, then that sucks.
I was told to rein that in because I was the kid that. Sir Ken Robinson, who passed away during COVID. This is a guy who was an educational doctor. Okay. He's a doctor in education, I'm sorry. And I believe. He talks about the lady that was the choreographer of Cats. When she was a little girl, she couldn't sit still. And so she was taken by the teacher and the principal and the mother into the office. And and she says every time she's not focusing in class, the music's on, she can't stop moving. It's a problem at home, the mom says, and I don't know what to do. And the principal says, just, can we all talk in the hallway? And so he leaves the radio on in his office. The three of them go out in the hallway. She's swaying back and forth and having a whole rip-roaring time in there. And he says, your daughter's a dancer, put her in dance school. She becomes the lead ballerina in the London ballet and eventually choreographs Cats.
That's awesome.
Because somebody looks at a kid and says, that kid has this. That kid has to do this. This is a modus inside of them for getting out maybe their anxieties, maybe their challenges that they're facing in associating the real life pressures that are in their life. This is just an innate thing inside of them that they feel compelled to do. And
I think artists are storytellers, and it's it's like telling somebody who is a visual thinker or interested in visual communication, no, you can't communicate. That's like silencing someone, like it's like taking away someone's voice. And I will say I had encouraging parents about drawing, but I definitely got in trouble in school a lot for doodling on pages and stuff, because that's how I thought. It's like when I'm taking notes in school, it's like I'm gonna draw on the side of the page because that's how I thought. I didn't realize that at the time, but it's just natural.
It's internal, right? But it's not just art. The guy who just I built an island in our kitchen, and we had a portable dishwasher, and if you know what that is, it's a dishwasher that you roll across the room and you hook up to the sink and it does your dishes overnight. Okay? and then you roll it back to its spot over there by the fridge in the morning. Clean dishes, right? But It's a lot of fuss and fuss. I built an island in the center of our kitchen that, so we have more workspace, and it's also a wonderful social congress point. But what it meant is that now it's in the way of, it's a whole big painful maneuver to get the dishwasher in and around it. So we had a built-in one put in. Long story short, too late. The guy that put in our dishwasher has a degree in psychology, but he's a great plumber.
Yeah.
And that's his career. He's a plumber. He's always wanted to be a plumber. I don't know why I took a degree in psychology. My parents said I had to go to school, so I did.
Yeah.
But now I'm a plumber. I went to school. Now I'm doing what I wanted to do. Always liked
probably makes more than he would as a.
Oh yeah. Trades. Oh, what a desperate thing we have here for tradesmen in this country. But it's there's an internal logic to people that they have a predilective certainty inside of them that I enjoy this. I want to do something with this. I want to follow this pursuit. Yeah. And they should. Comedians know they're comedians, not the guy who knows. There's always the outliers. There's always the one that says, well, I'm good at telling jokes. Oh, okay. But you're not a comedian.
Yeah.
A comedian is just, the teacher has to give that kid 5 minutes at the end of class on Friday because it's the only thing that'll get them through the week is them to be able to do a routine for 5 minutes at the end of the week.
Yeah.
You hear a number of comedians that tell that story, right? But there's just such a thing as to explore any avenues, and one pages are a great possibility for that. Like, it's just, so my presentation was, I don't want a script when I was doing the one-page comics over this COVID lockdown period we had here in Canada. I don't want a script. I'm not drawing your comic script. And I don't want, I want an action. I want a moment. I want a thing. If it's one sentence, let's spin the dice. If it's a few sentences, good stuff. But if you're going to give me something that was written on the level that Alan Moore would, it's not going to work out. Because that's not what the one pages were. It was largely for people that don't explore these avenues, don't explore these creative outlets, but they have ideas and thoughts in their head. Wouldn't this be cool? But some of them are just simple one-page suggestions. This one is kaiju having a rock, paper, scissors fight.
So awesome. And that's a great concept. Like, that's a really good concept.
It's a brilliant concept.
Yeah.
But because of wherever my head was that day, I'm focused more on the pilot trying to figure out what those guys are doing. That's my take on it. Yeah. Because all I said was kaiju, rock, paper, scissors fight.
And what's great, Christopher, is you've got all these ideas, and almost any one of these. Well, I don't know if you could tell a series about rock, paper, scissors, kaiju, but a lot, maybe, yeah. But a lot of these ideas you can
flesh out,
take and just flesh out and do. Yeah,
it's just rock, paper, scissors fight as a comic. Why not just do an entire comic book of rock, paper, scissors fights? Yeah. And
totally
every approach you take to every story of whatever length, whether it's a panel, whether it's 6 pages, who's in this rock, paper, scissors fight?
Yep.
Are we having an underlying set structured rules through all of the stories, or is there variations of form? Is this rock, paper fight Cthulhian beasts in the far reaches of space?
Uh-huh.
Is this rock, paper, scissor fight Jello molds on a kitchen table?
Yeah, are we talking about the history of rock, scissor, paper fights and how they come from deep, dark, evil, secret societies that have passed down the secret of the rocks? I mean, you can riff on this forever. Yeah. And I love that you're bringing that up as an example too, because that's how creativity works, and that's why it's important to start. Because even just starting that path of okay, one sentence premise, let's roll with it and see where it goes. That can lead to like an entire graphic novel. And like, think about like, this is more for the audience than for Christopher, because obviously he's on to that. But it's like, if you guys think about like, Saturday Night Live or something, and it's like all the films that have generated from these little sketches.
Some of them are good.
Yeah, some of them are awful, but my point is like you can start with something short and build it out, and that might actually be easier than starting with something epic and then having to pare it down.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I love the concept. And by the way, your wife sounds amazing, and I think that's a really cool thing that she like kind of clued into the fact that like this was something you should do, and is kind of pushing you in those directions. I think that's good. I mean, it's good to have creative support.
Oh, sure. I mean, this is something that I'm really blessed in who my partner is, and we're a fusion family. We have 5 kids.
Yeah,
I had 3, she had 2. We have 5, right? And here's a partner that I didn't expect. And here's if you can have somebody in your life, and and I would encourage people to try to acknowledge that there's someone around them that gets them. And everybody has somebody that gets them.
Yeah.
And if that person is saying, I get you, and hey, you're really good at lighting matches. Hey, I really like the way you whistle. Whatever it is, thank that person and listen to them. Whistle, right? Or whatever it is you need to do, because you'd be amazed the amount that comes out of you once you have that person that has acknowledged that. And so maybe I'm a big softy, but my wife is I'm really blessed. She's pretty fantastic in that regard. And then when last year I got sick, and which is why I stepped away from working at the store anymore, and I just do this from home, and I write and illustrate books, and I work in film, and I do illustration work and artistic direction for a movie company here in Canada, and I do it all from here, and it's really fortuitous for me that our kids are adults and the house is taken care of, and I have a partner who says, "You're done. You did the hard part. Just go do the thing you need to do now." And I can't ever thank her enough. But everybody has somebody in their world that, man, you're really good at putting ketchup on French fries. Maybe you should have a fry shack. Oh, I don't know what it is, but there's something, and there's somebody. And sometimes we just need to listen to that person, and then they allow us to open up ourselves. Maybe, I'm probably too... maybe that's self-actualization too far. I don't know.
I dig it though, because you need somebody in your corner too. And I would say, like, if you guys, like, if anybody watching this doesn't have someone in your corner, reach out, make people in your corner. Like,
contact. I got you, boo. Contact me at my stuff, and I will give you the supportive speech, because you need it. You need it, and everybody has something. And then if somebody says that to you, and if you've got a pencil, and if you don't have a pencil sharpener, be careful with the steak knife.
Yep.
And, whatever, just go. Well, what if I make mistakes? It doesn't have an eraser. Just go around them. Just keep going. Don't worry about the mistakes.
That's
You'll figure
inspiring.
out ways for time to get rid of it, right?
I love that. I one of my favorite things to tell people who are kind of held back or whatever is, like, if you're gonna fail, like do it hardcore. Like I want to see the most epic failure on a page. The one thing I would hate to see is, like, for somebody to do a half failure, like, because that means you're hesitating. Like make epic failures and epic successes.
Oh, I'm good with a half failure. Yeah, I'm good with a half failure, because you're halfway there. Just get back to it. You're halfway there. You're halfway there of making a miraculous mess. Good stuff.
I love it.
Tattoo yourself today. Whatever it is. It's just one of the things that I'll do is I'll go into schools and I'll talk, and I've done it I've done it from grade 1, 2, 3 up to university level. And I'll go into places and into schools and to university. Like we have a business school in the city here. I did a session with them for a couple nights. And these are business students. I've never actually drawn with a pencil in my life. And I'm like, cool, go for it. I can't draw stick people. I can't draw stick people. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, what are we worried about? Make a miraculous mistake. Come on, do it. Tell you what, draw numbers.
Yep.
Draw numbers, put little legs and hands on them. And I said that this to this one girl, and oh my heavens, she was Sergio Aragonés. She's just covering pages in these ridiculous drawings, and all of her people are numbers.
Yeah, and I would love to see a comic with a bunch of people that are numbers. I mean, that sounds fun.
Like, just go for that. And then so, you know, it's there's no reason you can't go with anything. I don't know how to draw. Can you draw a circle, a square, and a triangle?
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Put those things together in different shapes. You can draw a car. Go. Just go. And it's a horrible looking car. Yes, it is, but it's your first one. Do another one. You know, and because that's the same for us. When you think about it, the fundamentals of what we do, like, Scott, you didn't draw perfectly overnight. Picking on Scott.
I don't draw perfectly now. Well, that one does, yeah.
My point is that when you first started drawing, and the same with you, Josh, same with me, it's, yeah. If you look at the history of what I've done, what we've printed with RP Comics, with Runciman Press, my early books are horrible. I look at them now and
yeah,
I would never do, you know, I got to redo those. No, I don't. I did them, and I learned.
Yeah, and you can look.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can look back at those, keep that stuff around, look back, and you can see your improvement. I tell people like this all the time with YouTube. You want to see, if you go back to like my first video, it was so awkward, but I'm not ashamed that it's up. I mean, I keep it up there because you can see that progression after doing this for so long. You just get more comfortable. It's anything. The more you do it, the better you're going to get. I mean, it's just the fact. There's no way around it. You're just going to keep improving. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're not going to have like the great book until you make the bad book. Like the point being, like, maybe you'll luck out and your first book will be like the brilliant book. But it's kind of like being in a I always tie things back into like music and other stuff too, because it's like all related. But it's like, if you want to play guitar, the easiest way to learn guitar is pick up a guitar. And if you want to write songs and you know one chord, start writing a song with one chord, and then you'll learn another chord. Like you almost have to be in the crappy garage bands to get good at what you're doing if you're going to play rock and roll. It's like, but hesitation. Yeah, but hesitation's not going to get you anywhere. Like, and that's the key. Is like, you know, because I guess I get passionate about it too. Because a lot of people, you know, Scott and I, and like we come across people who are like, they're held by perfectionism or hesitation, and it causes them to not, you know, accomplish what their inner being is telling them to do. And that's, man, anyhow, sorry, Christopher, you're getting me all worked up. It's very inspiring.
There's nothing, but that's the whole thing, is that we should all have enthusiasm. What Galen just said there?
Yeah.
I think in response to that, you would be hard pressed to find any creator that can't look at any project that they've ever done and look at the first page and tell you all the flaws between that and the last one they did.
Yep. Oh, and you can see it like in my books because I've been doing this so long. It's my comic book project, because it's kind of a side project. I'm nowhere as prolific as like Christopher. So you can, if you look at each issue, you can definitely see a progression there, because it takes me a while to put these books out because I've got other creative projects I'm working on as well.
Well, you've done like 50 books for Amazon, to be fair, Scott.
Well, yeah, like coloring books and stuff.
Yeah, but still, that's something. I mean, any of those creative forays, there's complete validity in all things. Like if you're using, any opportunity in order to get that out, and any opportunity to get that flow happening, and to get some sort of project underway, even if it's just, as you say, Scott, like don't diminish all the things that you've put out.
Yeah.
So Scott, I signed up for his newsletter recently because I'm only dialing into the social outlet of the interwebs in the last little bit. Okay. And it's been something I really haven't done. Again, different life priority choices that I made. There's nothing more valid or less valid or anything like that. Just different. I'm a traditional medium guy, and computers are scary. And so I didn't really get into social avenues until COVID. COVID forced me to talk to the world. Yeah. Even the publishing stuff that we've done on a regional basis. I haven't pursued distribution at all for my books. We've been selling 100 or 200 copy publication runs in southwestern Ontario. And it's
awesome, though.
And it's only because I don't want to drive everywhere or I didn't want to go through the whole notion of setting up distribution. If all the people that we've published over the years, I'd give them copies of the book. Go take these. Say, look, I've been published. Go find, go somewhere and get work. Because we're not paying everybody for these things. Here's your copies. There's your thing. There's the exchange. Go. And a number of them are working in the industry now and making money making comics. And that's a gift. It's not my gift. It's a gift that they're able to pursue those avenues and those ambitions that they want. And that's what it should be. But if all I can do is say, look, you're in print, go, then that was my part. But when it comes to any of those things, when it comes to any of those executions on how to do stuff, they all count. They all matter. Like one of the series of comics that I did is an alphabetery.
I love that.
That's ridiculous, though. Because an alphabetery is what the monks used to teach the masses letters and words. A, apple. We all had them in kindergarten, right? B, boy or ball, right? I know what a ball is. B, ball, right? It works. But B, birds. Airplane is one I did. I wish I I wish I, flew on an airplane, and I just kept crossing out all the wrong things that I said so that the sentence is, I wish I flew on an airplane. But I make all these mistakes on the page and just cross them X and out as I go. Because that's fun. I love it. You incorporate the accidents, or you try the different things. One of the things here, like this is drawn digitally. Hold on. Here we go. This is digital. It's really rough. Just grabbed a quick black pen, felt tip, drew this rough little scenario here. Yeah. And all the coloring and all the effects, everything else, it's all digital. Right? So that's a digital page because I wanted to do, I took this sort of rambling idea of one notion, somebody having their last data, getting fired from the party factory.
See, that's a great concept too.
Sorry.
You have great concepts. Sorry, but every time you mention one of them, I'm like,
these are the concepts people throw at me. But it's a lot. Somebody getting fired from a party factory. It's a great notion. And this page is done with a dipping pen, like an old quill pen that you stick in the ink, and you draw.
So rad.
And I did this as a 1950s private eye about a lady discovering a cell phone, because I put those in my private eye thing from the 30s because I can. It's my comic.
And that one there are a couple different versions, like that one kind of repeats. There's other adventures of the private eye.
There's a couple of different Sams in here. I would go back to the Sam the private eye. Like, somebody gets somebody saying something terrible to him on the phone. Okay, fine. Sam the private eye. He picks up the phone, but I go through the whole private eye shtick. And when he answers the phone, someone says, "Hey Sam, you stink." That's it. Why would he go and say something? Just dumb, but I get to draw in ink. This is about punk rocks. Being a big fan of punk rock music in the 70s and 80s growing up.
Nice.
You know, what punk rock used to mean wasn't about all the style and Blink 180, whatever.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It was about being the weird kids that didn't fit in and trying to find other kids like you so that if you're in a large enough group, nobody would beat you up. Wear hair care. This is an advertisement for hair male pattern baldness. But it's how it affects a werewolf. This is the most out superhero I could think of. There's a Canadian comedy group called Kids in the Hall.
Yes.
And this is, I modeled Scott Thompson. Scott Thompson has this book. Scott Thompson likes this.
Oh, that's awesome. I love Kids in the Hall.
Cool to me. But somebody I know gave it to him. And but he's his buddy character. He's called Captain Sincerity. You can tell if you're lying. You know, and so he just, everything's insinuative, everything. So, you know, it's whatever. It's trying whatever different things. This is traditionally drawn black pen. These two comics. This is one is about how the Pebble of Doom upset skateboarders everywhere, and I incorporated a character that did, Cardboard Samurai. And then this one is about a kid collecting frogs.
Oh, that's so good.
You know, and again, you draw traditionally 11 by 17, you scan it, and then do all the coloring and have fun in the computer. So there's nothing to hold anything back anymore.
Yeah.
You know, we can just explore whatever, and that's white ink and white paint on heavy blue cardstock, and just a couple of old farts being inappropriate at their daughter's wedding. You know, this one is really fun. This is, I think, I'm going to use this for a second and just get back into the whole foundational part of a one-page comic. So this, oh, thank you. Did you just make the whole thing bigger?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I'm setting up the page, and it's these kids riding their bikes to meet up with a couple of other kids. The brother and sister are arguing. Mom said you had to take me. Just hurry up, dummy. You know, yeah, oh, did you bring your sister? So they go to the place. The notion of the page is, for years, blood sacrifices have been done at this pond in exchange for treasure. and in the presentation, the final line was, they don't survive. So it's a bunch of kids going to a park to do a blood sacrifice in order to get treasure. They don't survive. So I want you invested in the kids. So I'm focusing on Mom said you had to take me. Hurry up, stupid. You know, oh, girls stink. They're really dumb. Did you bring it? Of course I did. What do you got there? What have you? Is that your pet? He throws. So I have this recurring little dialogue in here. There's the pet. I'm trying to do this backwards. There's the pet in the shoebox on the bike. Here he has it in his hands. There's the empty box on the ground. There's the splash of it hitting the water. And as his sister is telling him off, and she's going to tell Mom, something pops out of the water. Scary monster. They don't survive.
I love it.
So a one-page comic is just one idea. And then this idea is sacrifice things to the pond. It's not going to work out, right? And so it's just exploring that. But then there's all those little things. Like I changed the color palette at the bottom in the bottom panel because I've lulled you into this soft green. Everything's calm and smooth, soft greens and blues, bright red. They don't survive. You know, so there's that underlying. Sorry, my camera's all over the place here, people. There's an underlying thing that we do with the formal rules of storytelling that we've, got to some extent because we've been doing it for X amount of time, that we're going to input onto those pages. And we're going to have a different understanding of how to do the size and shapes of panels and how the characters interact and how the flow of the story goes. You feel manipulated by my use of color theory. Yeah, that's the whole idea. It works really well if you don't know that I've done it. That's when you know it's working well, if the viewer doesn't realize you've manipulated them. But all those different formal things, as we apply those and manipulate people like Galen, it works out so that the viewer gets the story across better, and we can tell a larger story in a limited amount of space.
I love it. And also, I think, honestly, this is a really good example of why, like, when Scott encourages people to start small with like a 1-page or a 4-page comic, or even a 1 panel, right? It's good practice in beginning, middle, and end. You can do it excellently. Like what we just saw was like a very short comic, but it's like it tells a whole story. And then if you wanted to, like, that one instantly reminds me of like Black Hole by Charles Burns, which is almost the same premise, but it's a full graphic novel. You could take that and build it out into like a longer sequence, or you could like start following that story through. Okay, what does happen to the kids? Does a kid escape? Suddenly you have a horror comic. It's like you can, starting with a simple prompt. I love that idea, because even just seeing these different examples of 1-pagers are so inspiring, because it inspires the imagination when you have a kaiju rock scissors paper battle. Like, I want to see that now. Now I want to see a whole graphic novel that talks about the history.
I want to see it as a film.
Yeah, I do. I think it should be like a Monty Python bit where it's like it starts with the history of rock scissors paper. It starts, maybe in caves, and then it's carried on by like secret societies throughout the world until it becomes this larger thing. And then you could have rock, paper, scissors battles. I mean, but the point being, like, I think you're very inspiring in the way that you're utilizing prompts to kind of, even though like there's a freeness in the approach, I also like that there's a seriousness in your approach too, where it's not like you're just kind of casually, I'll just make whatever comic. Like you are like making the best pages you can make. I don't know. It's very inspiring.
Well, I think everybody that produces material and everybody that executes any projects on any level, any creativity that comes out of us, whether it's music, whether it's performance on any avenue, it's something that's being birthed into the world, and it's something that somebody's out there and they're going to look at it and go, hey, yeah, that's my thing. You might come across 6 or 7 people that look at it and go, yeah, no, I'm out, but there's that one person that's going to connect to whatever you do. We can try to be trying to do the mass marketable thing. Like there's a thing now in comics. I keep coming across this. There's this huge development of people producing material and the idea that it can be solicited for a film.
Oh yeah.
Solicited for a television show. And then there's people who have done a solid body of something that really should be.
Yeah.
Well, Paper Girls to be made into a television show or a film, that's an interesting idea. There's a number of comics that are out there that, yeah, this would be an absolute fantastic film or an animated film or something like that. But it's already birthed into the world. Alan Moore never sees anything that's made based on the stuff that he's written, because he says as soon as the illustrator, when Dave Gibbons drew Watchmen, it was already a different project than what he wrote in his brain. Because Dave Gibbons is going to draw things not exactly how Alan Moore perceived them in his mind.
Yeah.
So that project is already one step removed. So he's more and more removed from whatever material, beyond Watchmen or before Watchmen or whatever that is. None of that matters to him, because he wrote Watchmen as Watchmen.
Yep.
Even the finish of it before it's turned into any animations or film, it's out of his hands already. It's not what he made. There's something to be said for that. I like the idea of, if you're going to do, I like things fast and easy too. If you're going to do a project that maybe somebody wants to adopt a film out of, do a single page kaiju rock, paper, scissors fight and frustrate people that's not developed as a whole thing. Just do things as finite as you can, so people go, that's a good idea. Oh, I wish ha ha ha.
I love that.
Having marital problems. Ha ha ha.
I think what you're talking about is pretty good in the sense of but also I will say sometimes that can be very frustrating where people aren't viewing comics as the final medium for what they're making. And it's like, you know what's a lot easier than making a comic to get a Hollywood deal? Write a really good script, write a bunch of pitches, proposal pitches, and start hustling in Hollywood, just like everyone in Hollywood is. If you're going to invest the time into making a graphic novel and putting it out there, make the best comic you can make. Do things with comics that movies can't do. Make a great comic. That's what Alan Moore did, and they've made and Dave Gibbons, honestly, like they've made films out of it, but it's like they probably wouldn't have been as interested if it wasn't so solid. You've mentioned Dave McKean like quite a few times on here. He's one of my favorite artists, and it's like, I mean, I'm pretty thrilled and excited about the Sandman. Like, I'm hoping they nail it. And everything I've seen so far looks great. But it's like, people have been a fan of Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean and Sam Keith, who's like one of the co-creators too. It's like, we've watched this thing and there have been rumors of this thing being made into a film for years. And finally it's actually potentially going to happen. But here's the thing: if there never were a film, people like people like us would be like huge fans of Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean and the Sandman because it's a masterpiece. It's just like it's already perfect, Yeah, I use the term
sequential literature. When I talk about some books, I use the term sequential literature.
Yeah,
because it is, and I think it's a progressive medium. I think it's going to be quite more and more a progressive media in general than just a medium for expression. I think it's going to be a media in general because it is more and more pervasive that technology and education is so visually based now. And because there's so many kids that don't read anymore. They just watch or they play or they video, this is me being 1,000 years old, or they play video games and back in my day. But I just see a lot of kids that they have no inherent interest in reading. And if you can catch those kids by letting them read pictures, right? Asterix, Les Swamp for the Smurfs, right? Dan Dare. This goes back years, like, Asterix and Obelix. I used to sign those out in the library over and over and over again, different volumes of it, or Valerian when I was a kid.
I love it.
And, these European imports that we get here in Canada at schools, anglicized, and over and over and over again. And I learned to read that way and became a voracious reader. But if we can figure out how to catch kids that are visually oriented with comic books, I think that's the wave of things in the future. And there are parcels of these that are being produced now that are literature. They're not just the cliche stereotype underwear in the outside or cute animals in the pond. This is, and even Pogo is literature. Walt Kelly's Pogo has some really insightful.
100%.
But that's me standing on top of the rock and proclaiming things mightily, my hands upraised. This is literature, folks. But it's just it's expression, and if one page notions helps people spit fire out there onto the papers, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place to kind of put a pin in it. But I mean, I'm sure Josh would agree. We definitely want to have you back on, Christopher, because we could continue talking to you. And no, it's great. It's
100%
awesome.
Amazing.
So we're definitely going to have you back on. Is there anything that you wanted to get out that you hadn't, at least this time around, that you want to put just as far as to wrap things up?
Like, what am I doing right now? Like, what have I got going on at the moment? Or
we'll actually get to that. But as far as just the conversation,
no, I think that anything that anybody can do, I think that anything that anyone can do, whatever materials you can put together, put them together. If you've just got the leftover newspaper from that's in your household that gets delivered free in your town or wherever you live, great, you got paper, right? If you've got a ballpoint pen in a drawer in the kitchen, go like this on a hard surface until the ink comes out, and then draw on that paper. Yep. Like, whatever it is, find a way for you to figure out what your thing is and explore it. If you want to do film, borrow someone's phone. They're cameras now. You know, it's whatever it is. If you want to do whatever you want to do it. And if one page allows people to figure out how to explore themselves in the comics. Yeah, like Josh and Scott, like it was earlier said, you start and then it gets easier. And you start and then you get a mini comic. And then you know, but you just got to do that half-finished, absolute horrible nightmare. And then start a comic company.
Awesome.
I love it. I still feel like, you know, I'm going to qualify this by saying we might all be insane, and we might be like, because I've talked to so many cartoonists, and it's like there is also the other reality where we all could potentially be like drug addicts about this, where it's like we've tried comics and we've gotten addicted, and now we're trying to push it on you guys. But I'm telling you guys, I agree with Christopher 100%. And Christopher, it's been inspiring because I feel fired up. Like I've been working on a page while we're talking, and I feel like, okay, charged up, supercharged. So we will definitely have you back on.
Yeah, and you can tell by the comments in the chat too. I mean, people are yeah. So I haven't
had the comments on this whole time. I tried to figure out how to click it on.
I tried to pull up a few of them, but yeah. So all right, so let's wrap things up then. Josh, where can everyone find you?
JoshMcKemble.com, quarterly stories, pick up Jacob's Apartment, my comic that's a slice of life, coming of age story that if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, put it in a blender and mixed it with Ghost World, and you like that kind of flavor, it's definitely that kind of slice of life, coming of age story, and you can get that from Graphic Mundi or ask your local bookstore to order it. And then definitely pick up Christopher's book because it looks pretty incredible, and also the variety of media is really inspiring too. So, yeah.
And there is a link in the description of this video. It's up here too, but if you don't want to type that all out, just click on the link in the description. So, Chris, besides that, anything else you want to promote or leave people with as far as where to find stuff of yours? Or?
If you go on Instagram or Facebook, or I posted on Instagram, Facebook. It's also on my Patreon. I'm doing every couple days. I put up another full page of a new book I'm putting out called Stream of Conceitedness, where it's another crazy idea I have. The main character is an illustrated version of me. That's the conceited part. It's a stream of consciousness book. I'm putting him through hell, and he doesn't know why. It doesn't matter. It's just exploring different avenues of exploration of narration and having fun. But I post that every couple days on Christopher-Runciman- Canada on Instagram and Facebook. Blah blah blah. But yeah, if anybody ever wants to reach out or has notions about one-page ideas and wants to play and have fun, and let me know. I'm around.
Awesome.
Before Scott, I just want to say one thing. I've been watching this show for a couple of months now. Mm-hmm. I've been watching Artcasters, and I've been looking at the different websites from the three primary guys that are on here all the time, and subsequently I've been introduced but to a whole bunch of other artists that I'm starting to follow through and pick up all their work as well. This is a wonderful platform. The idea of being able to interact with other creative types and to explore avenues and the love of comics. And so yeah, I think Artcasters is brilliant for that, and I think I've tried to tune into a number of different shows that are in this sort of similar format. Don't have the spirit.
Wow,
this
thanks.
place does. So yeah, thanks for having me on board, guys.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you discovered us, and I'm glad you reached out and sent me the comic and everything, because I mean, the internet, there is a lot, it's just, I mean, it can suck away your creativity if you just get lost in that, that endless doom scrolling and all that. But there is good stuff out there, and it's a way people can connect. So you take the good with the bad, and hopefully what we're doing is good for people. So
it's great. It's great.
Yeah. And so as far as me, you're on my channel. That's where you can find me. Again, be aware that in the next couple of weeks, I'll be launching my Kickstarter, and I'll be letting everyone know more about that. But if you aren't already signed up to my newsletter, like Christopher said, he just joined it. So I usually send out a newsletter every month or so, and it's usually broke up between art advice and inspiration. So that if you're into that kind of stuff, that's what you'll get, and you'll also be notified when I have a big project like the Kickstarter coming up. So just be aware of that. And if you join through my website, you'll get the Comic Maker Starter Kit, which is a suite of tools.
How much is that?
Well, that is absolutely free.
What?
Brilliant! It has everything you need to digitally make comics.
Yeah.
It does.
So besides that, first I again wanted to thank everyone in the chat. We just had a really good chat going tonight. So thank you all. And this show we do every single week, the Artcasters, typically without fail. Every once in a while we take a little break, but we're pretty consistent. We put these out every week. But if you're looking like on my channel and you're like, well, it looks like you're skipping things and you're skipping numbers, then
I'm confused. It seems like it's on my channel, it's on your channel, it'll be on Corey's channel sometimes. Who knows? How do we keep track of this thing?
If you want to get every single episode, you can subscribe to each of our channels. Or is an easier, you want to do that anyway. You want to subscribe to each of our channels, but join our mailing list for this show, the Artcasters, and we will send out every time before we go live, about 30 minutes, we'll send you out a notification. You can click on that. We'll tell you who the guest's going to be, what the topic's going to be, whose channel it's going to be on, because like Josh said, it goes back and forth for each of our channels. So it's the best way to kind of be informed when we're going to go live and all that kind of stuff. So there's also a link in the description for that. And don't forget to click on Christopher's link. And really, honestly, I mean, if you just want, if you want inspiration for ideas, I mean, it's got tons of ideas, and it's great stuff. It's just, I just love the concept of this, and I can't wait to read more, which I understand is on the way. So thank you for that, Christopher. And thanks for coming on. We appreciate you staying up late and everything. And we'll see everyone next week, I think, on Josh's channel.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
See you then.
Take care.